Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Music Care, the first in Italy, organized in Italy, the first virtual fair of about music. We've been seeing that around the world. There've been a lot of this kind of initiatives with some pro and cons, as you say. And we have the pleasure to have here with us Rob Wallace and Joe Bergamini.
Hello, Marco.
You're very welcome, guys. Just a little introduction. Everybody, I believe, knows the two men which are in front of me, but Rob Wallace was, and help me if I'm wrong, but you were the owner of the Drummers Collective in New York in the 1980s, about, and then you founded during all the rest of your times, you found also the Hudson Music. Am I correct?
Yes, yes. And before Hudson Music, the first company, the video company, was called DCI Music Video. And that was the company that started with the Steve Gadd Up Close and Steve Gadd in Session videos in 1981. And that was kind of the whole introduction to instructional drum videos.
Yes, I have. I believe the first VHS that you published in the DCI about Gadd.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, a long time ago.
Okay, and then here we have also Joe Bergamini, who is you're also the co-founder of a rock band, but also you of is it the Forefront something? Sorry if I
Yeah,
the Forefront, right?
yeah.
Okay, but you're a teacher, you're a drummer, you are also working in partnership with Rob with Hudson Music, Hudson Digital, the new born in Hudson House, in the Hudson family. Is it
That's
correct?
that's right. First, I want to say that I love doing interviews in Italy because although I'm American, I'm of Italian descent. And in America, people don't they have trouble pronouncing my name correctly until they know it. But in Italy, when I travel in Italy, it just sounds like music. Everyone says my name's so wonderful. I love it. Um, but yeah, so
Nice.
I'm a drummer. I'm still active. I started off playing in a lot of those rock bands. Worked a lot on Broadway here in New York, and after I had written a few books, I met Rob, and we started. He brought me on board with Hudson Music as the editor. So my job is pretty much to work, with Rob and whoever the artist or author is on fine tuning the projects, on the content and the look. We all sort of work as a team, and so we get to work on all these great projects together. And starting off with exclusively educational books, with music
Yes.
notation in them. But now we've branched out into biographies and what in the business we call books that don't have notation in them. So we've done biography of Bobby Morris and Liberty DeVito and Bobby Morris are autobiographies, and now Jeff Porcaro. So one of the great, wonderful things in my career was meeting up with Rob and getting to work with lots of my heroes on their drum books and projects.
Lots of your heroes, but you're an important clinician. You're a very successful clinician, and just to mention one of your students, Mark Juliana, is one of your students who had great success in the books that you have also published.
So we have Mark's drum book, exploring your creativity on the drum set, is a Hudson Music book,
Yes.
and he's playing here in New York City at Radio City Music Hall with St. Vincent next week, and so I'm going to go see him play, and my son is coming, and yeah, Mark is just my pride and joy. I taught him when he was very young, so I can only take a limited amount of credit for how he sounds now, but he's just I love him so much. He always thanks me, and we're like family. So yeah, thanks for mentioning him. He's the best.
Is. We mentioned also one of the greatest, probably Steve Gadd, just before talking about DCI. There's one book. Well, I have just here with me, just and I believe every one of us says, well, It's impossible for a drummer not to have this book in our library. Um, this is Get Demen's. It's we can say it is a sort of summary of Steve Gadd vocabulary. Is it? Is it correct?
Yes, I mean, Steve started at a very young age playing in drum corps, and he loved playing rudiments. He loved drum lines, and he loved to have drummers playing drum parts together. He thought, after school when he was really young, he'd go to his friend's house and there'd be three or four drummers and they would all play a rudiment together and try to, make it really, sync right up. And, you can really hear it in a lot of his playing. I mean, obviously, the easy one is 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, which was, very rudimentally oriented. Um, but yeah, Steve was home because of the COVID pandemic, and he had these rubber tip sticks around his house in different rooms, and he would just pick them up and start playing on a tabletop. And one day he called up and said, I've been writing down these exercises I'm coming up with, and I think they're really fun, and I think maybe people would enjoy playing them. And we, Joe and I took a look, and we said, wow, yeah, this is really great content. So we worked on it, for months. I don't know. How many months do you think it was, Joe, that it was in the making?
I mean, I want to say probably 6 months. You think?
I was going to say 5 or 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marcos, Steve, there would be days where he would call, 4 and 5 times in a day. And he'd say, go to page 27, line 4, measure 3. Those last two eighth notes need an accent. I'd say, okay, click, you'd hang up. An hour later, go to page 29, same thing. And this went on for months. I mean, he would just play the stuff over and over and over. We would have Zoom calls where, we would talk about this stuff. A couple of times, Steve asked Joe to play it, kind of live, sight unseen. I didn't want to go there. But, Joe ended up playing the stuff. And, Steve, he's such a hard worker that once he got focused on it, it became his whole focus. I mean, it's all he would do, literally. He would go out and take a walk and get some exercise and work on the book, day after day. It was amazing to see. And it's really a glimpse into how he is as a person. I mean, it's the same thing when he does a tour or he does a record. I mean, his focus is really completely on what he's working on at that point in time.
Well, details in this case do really count, do make the difference.
Yes, absolutely. It was Steve's idea to have a hand engraved book. In other words, what that means, it's
Yes.
not finale, it's not a computer,
Yes.
but we found somebody, Joe found somebody that did charts for Broadway musicians for Broadway shows. It used to be in art. There used to be people, a lot of people in New York that did that work. They were called copyists, and that has become kind of a dead profession because people do it now, with Finale. They sit at home on their laptop and they can print out beautiful looking charts. Well, Steve didn't want that. He wanted something that looked and reminded him of what he used to read when he was young. And so Joe was able to find somebody that still had their pen. This is done with pen and ink. And I think that the fellow Roy that Joe found had kind of just retired from doing handwork. He was doing computer work, and we had him, get his pen and ink back, and he had to practice. And, Steve was involved in every detail, what the page looked like, the title of each piece, some of them very funny, names at the top. It was all, it was all Steve, and Joe and I just were there to kind of try to bring his ideas, really to the page, and make sure he was happy with it, make sure everything was done properly, and it was just an amazing project. And for me personally, it's 40 years later that I worked again on a project as important as this with Steve, and he really kind of helped kick off the whole instructional video world in 1981, and here we are, exactly 40 years later with this book. It's an amazing story, really.
It is, and this is really what makes our job beautiful, meeting people, and after 30, 40, 20 years, you still have the same passion, same fire that you see in everyone's heart and eyes, and this is beautiful. Friendship, real friendship are born in thanks to our job.
Absolutely. I'll let Joe speak, but I always call the drum world and the kind of the little drum community that we have the best fraternity in the world. Hope you understand what that word means. It's
Yes.
like a club,
Yes.
and the drum world is the best club. And whenever drummers are together, it's always a good time. And
It is.
we're very lucky for that. We're really very, very lucky for that. It's not like that with all the other instruments or all the other arts.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Joe, you I believe that you have played every single line of this book. Did you?
I'm working on it. You put me on the spot too. So I wanted to actually comment on a couple of things that Rob said, just for people who might not have seen the book yet. The original videos that Steve did up close and in session, I think, right? Rob was the other one.
Yes.
And any other transcription books that you might have seen consisted of, Rob, in the case of up close, asking Steve questions and people kind of documenting his work. And those two videos are a must see. And back in the day, DCI, which Rob was the co-owner of, had a companion book, which I still use with my students. What's different about Gaddamans is this is the first drum book that Steve wrote. It's his work. And I think that because of his full-on personality, like now, thanks to Rob having gotten to know him, I can see why everyone in the world, all the biggest artists, want him as their drummer. His attention to detail and his musicality is unequaled. And for that reason, I think if we didn't have this pandemic, we wouldn't have this book, because Steve was at home, and as he started to, keep his chops in shape, as he said, he started playing a pattern. And so the book has rudiments in it, okay? It's basically a rudimental book. Any drummer could play. But why is it so interesting? It's because Steve Gadd brings to it a musicality and other concepts that make it exciting and difficult, but not so difficult that you can't do it. So the theme of the book is he takes a rudimental pattern and then he displaces it in time. So it no longer lands on the downbeat. So immediately as he started working on keeping his chops in shape, he's like, oh wow, it gets harder if I move it over by 1/16. And then to complete that, he made like 4-bar phrases out of everything. So everything in the book is like, it's based on a rudiment, and then it's displaced in time, and then it's put into a 4-bar phrase that resolves in time. So it's like, most people have kind of one idea in their book. Steve's book ideas are so musical that you're working on your rudimental ability, you're working on your chops, you're working on your understanding of displacement, which a lot of the greats use, and you're also learning phrasing. So he wanted all of those things addressed in this book. And I think that's what makes it like so, inspiring to all the drummers who have started practicing it. So, yeah. Do you want me to show that? Like,
Yeah, I know that. Before it's a question that I have. Are there videos of Steve performing these rudiments? Right, for the people who will buy the book, there's a possibility to see also Steve playing. Is it correct?
Yes,
It's an information that we need to tell people so that they are more.
Yes, in the book there's a code to go to a website, and every exercise in the book is played by Steve at a pretty slow tempo, so you can hear the phrases Joe is talking about, and even if you can't read, you can figure out what Steve's doing, and you can follow the notes along a little bit, and kind of follow it along enough so that you can play along with Steve, and really memorize the patterns, because really at the end of the day, that it's just stickings. It's only two hands. There's no feet involved. There's no tom toms and cymbals, and you're not reading all these many lines of music. It's just snare drum left and right. So it's like Joe said, it's very accessible to people, and if you put a little bit of time in, if you're not a reader, you can still get a lot of benefit, I think, from the book.
Great. This is an information that's very useful to tell people, because not many drummers really read music, and I've seen some of the exercises are a little bit complicated in reading it. Probably hearing it, and maybe it's more emotional playing. Then it would be easier also for the drummers who don't really read.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yes, Joe, you told us. Do you have the chance to show us some of the exercises?
So I'm going to yeah. Steve, I just wanted to say Steve chose tempos, like for instance, here's one with pataflafas. I'll just play the first line. The pattern is this. So he chose 80 beats per minute for that, which is he could have done it at a crazy fast tempo, but he chose a slower tempo. And then I'll show you the idea of displacing it in time. So that whole sticking gets moved back to the E. And then he displaces it to the so it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're playing the exact same sticking, but it's moved back. It's moved back to a different 16th note of the beat. And Steve chose. He has metronome markings in here, and in the accompanying video, he plays them at these tempi that feel good. They're not designed to be like, you're not chopping out trying to go as fast as you can, but he chose tempos that feel good, and they're different ones. And so on the video, the metronome marking you see on the page is the one that he's playing.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that's one of the key things, is that he chose something. Now, some of those tempos you obviously have to slow down to get them. But another thing I wanted to say, I remember now, was we've basically transitioned to a digital delivery of all of our media content with the Hudson stuff. So all of it is accessible online. A lot of our books are also available digitally. So if you're not a great reader, we one of the things that we're really proud about with Hudson Music, books like the Breakbeat Bible or Mark Juliana's book, or Trap Drumming, or Gil Sharon's reggae book. There's so much more than just the music notes in there. There's a lot of history, there's a lot of background, and there's always that multimedia content. Obviously not in a biography, but in the music book. So if you're not a good reader, you don't be afraid of our stuff. There's always demos in there, and so you should pick it up and listen. That's honestly, that's how I kind of, I had lessons when I was younger. I mean, I wasn't really that into reading music, but I was a giant Rush fan, and I got that old book of Rush transcriptions, and it was too late to play. I would just I would put on Natural Science or some crazy odd meter song, and I would just that's how that looks. Okay, so you follow along and you learn. So that's part of the fun process of getting good at reading.
Yes, you introduced this argument about the digital content, because how long? It's a few years that you have also founded the Hudson Music Digital, which is moving, or not only moving, but it's also making available in a digital way all your old books. Is it correct? And this is very useful for the new generation, which don't really are into the, I really love paper. I love books, signed books, and we have a sort of memorabilia here, which is a uh, when we look at it, it's amazing. With digital stuff, you lose a little bit of this emotions. And you're talking to a person who in 1999 believed in the internet, and we started with a digital magazine. So, but paper is always important too. But you started with this new project, which is having a lot of success. Does it? It's very interesting. It's very used.
Rob, you wanna?
Yeah, what happened, Marco, was I made the decision about, well, now it's about 3 or 4 years ago, to make a commitment to digital. I felt that that was something that would be really good for drummers around the world. Some places it's hard to get the book. Sometimes we ship and the mail is not good and packages get lost. So my concept was to try to get all of the important drum books online in one place so that drummers around the world could easily get access to all these different books and videos and lessons and everything. So we started Hudson Digital, and I was able to license a lot of books from other publishers like the Ted Reed book and Stick Control and George Stone and you know on and on. We now have 1,000 titles between book, video, and lesson packs with a label that I started about 6 or 7 years ago called Drum Guru. And those are short lesson packs with a lot of different drummers like Steve Gadd and Steve Smith, Chad Smith, Mike Portnoy. Um, and so, Hudson Digital has kind of become, it's like an Amazon for drummers. Everything in there is drums. And lately we've branched out. We're starting to do some things like we have wall posters um, that are available from some of the products that we put out, like the Tommy Igoe Groove Essentials books. They had a poster in the video. Now we sell the poster. You can put it up on your wall. It's a great learning tool, and his Great Hands for Lifetime video. There's a whole chart and map of this exercise that Tommy developed from along with his dad um, before he passed, and that's on the poster, and you can put that up on your wall in the drum room and work on that. Or if you're a teacher, you can just point to it and have that information available. So yeah, we're branching out into some different things. And like Joe mentioned earlier, we've gotten in the past 2 years into some biographies. One that I'm very proud of is the Jeff Piccaro book, and this one is done. There's the Italian logo.
Italian version. Oh,
It's the
wait.
Italian version.
Okay, I would give you here it is. A little on the
Whoop.
on the corner. Yes,
Yeah.
Italian version.
So that's a new development that's available online. I'm pretty sure it's on the Amazon store in Italy um, and throughout Europe. But we're trying a lot of different things, and there's so much great material out there that for us to put out something new, it's got to be different and special. And we don't want to just put out a lot of material at this point because there's so much there to choose from. It's almost too much at this point. So we try to be very selective in what we release and what we produce. And it's been great. Working with Joe has been tremendous. We've really had a good time and created a lot of really interesting and projects that we've had so much fun, working with, like, the Neil Peart projects, which I know for Joe was kind of a dream come true to work.
Not kind of, not kind of. It was a dream come true.
Getting to work with Neil and getting to really know him and then ultimately becoming friends. Things like that happen that you don't really plan on. And it goes back to what we said about the drum community. Drummers
Yes.
bond and drummers have fun together. And it's just a matter of getting to know each other a little bit. So, we've both been very fortunate. I consider myself, really fortunate with the people that have, I've crossed paths with in my life. I would have never, you couldn't make it up. Some of the things that have happened, but it's great. We continue to develop a new, if I can. I know we're getting short on time, but a new project that's not even printed yet is a book with Stewart Copeland, and this is a test. This is a test copy of the cover.
I was going to ask you about this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Stewart Copeland. That book will be out in about 5 or 6 weeks. It's actually literally at the printers right now. And Joe worked really hard. Stewart spent a lot of time with us. It was amazing how I think in the beginning he wasn't quite sure how much he wanted to get involved. He's real busy writing these symphonies, and he's been touring the country. He had some shows in Europe even during the time we were working on the book. But Stewart was tremendous and really spent time. We tried to really document the recording of a lot of the great songs he's played on. And between his drum tech and Stewart's unbelievable memory, and he kind of reminded me of Neil Peart in that way, this unbelievable memory. Stewart, we got real great detail on how they recorded some of the drum tracks, especially on some real interesting things that were done on police tracks with echoes and repeats and reverbs and all these these different effects that were done. No one could quite understand how they got that sound, but I think we shined a light on it, and through Stewart's help and his drum tech Jeff Seitz was very, very involved in the project. Both of them were amazing. So that's coming out soon, and really excited about that one.
Yes.
I want to, just in case people haven't seen, this is the Neil Peart book that we did. And what we did, it's a lot more than just a drum book. I mean, we went through every album. This was sort of my dream project to do with Neil, where we documented, all his drum sets on tour. And then, of course, yes, transcriptions, note for note. So I'll go into a song, here in this case, Marathon from the Power Windows record. All the photos match to the era, reproducing ads, and then having transcriptions. So we did this same formula, I guess you'd say, for Stewart. And so, like Rob says, we've had so much fun working together. And thanks to him, I've, met and become friends with Neil Peart and Steve Gadd. I can remember sitting at home at 10 o'clock one night when Steve was in the middle of working on Gaddaments. My phone rings, Steve Gadd on the caller ID. It's like, I'm half asleep and I'm like, oh man, when Gadd calls, you pick up the phone. You know what I'm saying?
You must.
So yeah, and now Stewart was really a lot of fun. I mean, Rob and I would interview him, and those who follow him know he's a very animated personality. So I might ask him a question, I think when you guys formed the Police, and he'd be like, when I formed the Police, he'd like get right up in the camera, but he was just so cool, and he allowed me to come, and Rob actually couldn't make it that day. He allowed me to come to a rehearsal with Oysterhead, his band that has Les Claypool from Primus and Trey Anastasio from Fish, and I got to stand right behind Stewart Copeland and watch him play with no microphones, playing music, and just hearing that, unique personality. These guys, Neil Peart, Steve Gadd, Stewart Copeland, there's no smoke and mirrors. You go stand behind them and that sound just comes out. And you're like, oh, that sound, it's the greatest gig in the world to be able to work with these guys. So I'm really excited about this Stewart Copeland book. And I just wanted to touch on something you said about digital books and print books. Interestingly, when I would get the physical proof of a book on paper, Rob will tell you, I find more copy errors, or like I find more, like there's something about the paper book that I love as well. And the paper book is not going to go away. I mean, I think it's a integral part of human intelligence and knowledge being passed down. It's been with us since the dawn of civilization. Having said that, we can't print all these books anymore. Probably not only for the reason of we can't, some drum books, have a very small market, and we have to accept that and try to work on that. And we also save a little paper. We don't have to print everything. So, some of the digital books have an advantage of that when you're looking at the page on your device, you can simply tap on the exercise and the audio plays back. So Groove Essentials, for instance, is wonderful digitally because you can tap on example A, the groove example, hear it play back, tap on the variation, hear it play, and then tap on the chart, and you're off and running. And this is especially good for some of the older books that we've licensed. For instance, like Afro-Cuban Rhythms for Drum Set, Frankie Malabay's classic, where you sort of have to get out the CD and go looking around. So you don't have to do that now. You can just tap on it. So buy both. You'll have the digital, and
of course,
and,
that's the reason.
and not to take the focus away from Hudson, but I run a drum teachers club for Sabian called the Sabian Education Network, and if you join it, we have a lot of old lectures that Dom Fabularo and I did with different guests, and we talk about drum book curriculum nonstop. And not for an agenda of trying to promote Hudson, but I also love to teach, and I find it very fun. It's more fun to teach when you have a curriculum and you can take your students from A to B. And our materials really help you do that. So if you go to sabianed.com and join, you can watch those old lectures. And as a matter of fact, that's what my clinic at PASIC this year is about. It's about using these things to make yourself a better teacher, because it makes it more fun to teach when you have this, whole series of prescriptions, as Dom and I like to call it. Like, you don't know how to play Afro-Cuban? Okay, well, here's the Frankie Malabé book, or you don't know about reggae. Here's the Gil Sharon book. So,
Yeah.
I agree with Joe. I love print, but there's just the ease. It's easier to work, like he's saying, with a digital book when there's media, when there's video or there's audio. You just touch the screen. On an iPad, the stuff looks amazing. It's kind of, there are two worlds there. But for people all around the world, digital is such a great format. And we instead of you having to come to us to get something, we can come to you and just click the button, and there it is. And so it's been a great development, and I think actually digital has some real big benefits to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some of those big books, too, like Evolution of Jazz Drumming. When you get the digital one, you don't have to worry about, you don't have to break your binding. You keep your paper book perfect, and then the digital one lays flat on the stand. I can't tell you how many Zorro books I've destroyed. The binding, it's a little more, this is
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
this
a great
is not
solution.
not cheap to make. So
No.
this is sort of a higher end. But
Yeah, that's a great solution.
I also like seeing all the book spines in my bookcase so I could see what's there, So either way, it's all good.
Yes. Well, you said something correct before. Maybe it's a marketing solution. How about you buy the digital way and also a paper book that maybe Hudson Music can release signed. So it would be a great solution for sending both of them. I would buy a signed book by Steve Gadd, also on a paper way, on a paper.
We do
form.
some of that. So like there's special, smaller amounts. I would love to say to Stuart Copeland, hey Stuart, sign these 5,000 books, but I don't think he wants to spend all day doing that.
Stuart is actually going to sign some books that we'll be selling, and on the website there are signed Gadd books available actually also. So
Good.
I was waiting one for it. Remember, Rob? I was waiting a signed one, but for me, directed to Marco.
I told you next time I see Steve, we'll make that happen. He's been on the road, he's been touring with James Taylor, and then he had a 3-week break, and he played with Clapton in the break, and now he's starting up again with James Taylor, and he's coming to Europe, I think, in a couple of months. It's a long tour.
Oh, great! So
It's fantastic. I saw the show with James Taylor. Amazing, really
I've seen
amazing.
him. I've seen him with James Taylor here in Rome. It was a few years ago. I don't remember exactly, but it was about 5, 6 years ago, maybe even more.
And with Clapton, it's him and Sonny Emery together right now, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that's over. They finished that. There was
Oh,
like
okay.
12. It was like 12 dates.
And King Crimson has Gavin Harrison, who's one of our authors, uh, and Pat
Pat-
Mastelotto, and I'm not
Yeah, yeah. Who's the third
it
drummer?
wasn't
Oh
I
my
want to say
God.
Jeremy Stacy, but I might be wrong about that. But the three drummers. So I like this trend. Everyone's figuring out the more drummers, the better, right?
More work.
Yes, of course.
More work for
Top
drummers.
drummers.
Yeah, Rob is actually in a two drummer band. He moonlights. He doesn't like people to know he's still a working musician, but he's in a great Allman Brothers tribute band that plays. I'm sorry, Rob. He plays all over the place. He's playing big venues with them, and it's two drummers. Our friend Ron Negro from New York. So
Yeah,
that's the other thing that's fun is that Rob and I are both still out there doing it. You know, we love this.
Yeah, all of us. I'm a drummer too, but in front of you guys, which are real drummers, I always say that I don't play the drums. I'm not compared to you guys, but passion moves us. If we're here in front of a camera, it's because we're all fond of music and drums. So that's the first reason who moved us. One last question. If before I know that Joe has to go, so one last question: is there any intention to start maybe recording and producing some Italian important drummers? We have a lot of good, really good drummers. Is that way that we can work something out? Maybe we can talk about it. It's just something that I told you here, and maybe we can work about it.
Well, I know, Marco. I know you've mentioned it. We've talked a little bit. You have a beautiful studio. You
Thanks.
know,
Yes.
the, the important thing is the idea and content. It all starts with, like, Steve. Had a great idea, came to us. I mean, it certainly didn't hurt that it was Steve Gadd, but the information was really, really good and really different than anything we'd ever done before. So if there are people that have really good ideas for new content, then absolutely we can talk about that.
You're open. Well, I think that being produced by and published by Hudson Music, it's also something important for a drummer. That
Thank you.
I think it would be a good solution for everyone.
That
Well, you
sounds
guys,
good to me. And by the way, Italy is one of my favorite countries, and I don't just say this, in the world. I've been many times. I love the whole Amalfi Coast, especially, and I've spent quite a bit of time in Italy. So, and I love the food and the people and the wine and the cheese and the pasta, and I could go on for
yeah,
days.
I would have to say that Marco, I'm aware of a lot of the great Italian drummers with, having been there and through Dom actually met a lot of friends and
yes.
Italian drummers. But if it was up to me, we would have a Hudson Music. We could do a tour to whoever gives us the best wine and food in Italy will publish your book. We're willing to be bribed like that.
Well, you guys, if you come to Rome, if you happen to come to Rome, just call me and I'll give you my food and wine without publishing any of my books because
Ah,
I don't write books. I'm not so good for that. But anyway, eating good pasta and meat and good red wine, I'm the top. I just say black belt in this.
let's book it.
It sounds good to me.
Okay, you
Sounds
guys,
good.
thanks a lot for being with us and for giving us your time. And it was great talking to you. And we'll soon get back together if it's okay with you.
Sounds good.
Sure.
Thanks, Marco.
Okay, you guys, thanks a lot, and see you next time.
Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.